What up, Chuds? Cobson here, back at it again with another brand new YouTube video. Today we're going to talk about the 2024 gubernatorial elections. Now, it's been a good while since I last made a prediction, and boy, have things changed. So to start, I'm going to be using the four-color margin as opposed to my usual five, just because there isn't that much of a need for five colors. There's just not enough states, not enough variation. So to begin, let's look at the state of West Virginia. I got this one as safe Republican. I don't think we're losing this one at all. Jim Justice was the last Democrat to win, and he became a Republican. So yeah, that goes to show just how conservative the state really has become lately. Up next is Delaware. This state, yeah, we don't really have much of a candidate here either. The Democrats are going to retain this gubernatorial election. Up next is Vermont. Phil Scott, very strong incumbent. Somehow he's popular. I don't know who would vote for him, but hey, good for the people there. I think the Republicans are going to hold on to the Vermont governorship. Up next is Utah. I actually got this one as likely, and the reason why is that Cox is unpopular. He's starting to flip flop on a lot of issues, and we can just tell that he's having some difficulty with polling as there's multiple independent third-party candidates that are going to challenge him. I still think he wins, but there's always that little chance that he loses. That's why I got it as likely instead of safe. Probably going to bump back up to safe if Cox just really puts in just a little bit more effort. But we're barely teetering on the edge of likeliness. That's why I'm having Utah as likely R. Up next, North Dakota. Burgum is retiring. And yeah, this is not even the Democrats could literally nominate Heidi Heitkamp and she'd still lose by like 20 in this state. Democrats are just not picking up the state anymore. The moderate farmer wing of the party, it died with Kent Conrad leaving the Senate, honestly. And it's a real shame that Democrats they stopped trying to appeal to these people, and as a result, North Dakota, it's a state that Republicans don't even have to try to win anymore. It's just free real estate. Same goes with Montana. I know that Gianforte is a little bit on the more controversial side compared to most Republicans, but I still think he holds on just fine. The Democrats don't really have much of a candidate, and yeah, Steve Bullock, he definitely overstayed his welcome as we saw in 2020. And as a result, Montana is going to be a red state. The governorship will remain red. Up next is Missouri. We all know we were pretty disappointed with the Missouri primary, all things considered. Um, I know I wanted Ashcroft. I believe a friend of mine wanted Parson, or whoever the other guy was. I thought it was Mike Parson. If not, he's the incoming governor, and I'm thinking of someone else. But anyway, yeah, Missouri. It's a solid state that Republicans are going to win up and down the ballot, and that includes the governorship. Up next is Indiana. This is a state with a high evangelical population. I know that it tends to like more establishment Republicans like Mike Pence or Todd Young, but regardless, I think that Mike Braun is going to do a great job here. I think he's going to win the governorship quite easily, even though the Democrats, they are hoping that they could flip this, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. Maybe 2032, if Todd Young somehow runs for governor, they could flip it. But yeah, Indiana, not exactly a state that's going to be in play on the gubernatorial level. Next up, we have Washington. I have this one as a likely Democrat. I'm a huge Dave Reichert fan, but he's just underfunded. That sucks. I really like the guy. He's a good moderate Republican who doesn't throw the right of the party overboard. And if we had any incentive at all to pour money into this state, I think that we should have. I think that he would have gotten that money. But the problem is, even if Reichert won, The legislature is solidly Democratic. I believe at least in one chamber they have a supermajority, so that's going to be difficult to work with. On top of that, Reichert is he's not extremely conservative, so the people in this part of the state, you know, like the Joe Kent voters, for instance, or the Tiffany Smiley voters, they probably are not going to turn out for Reichert as much as we maybe would like to see. As a result, I think Washington's going to be likely Democratic, not safe, just because Reichert is still a strong candidate despite his massive funding deficit. But yeah, a likely Democrat state. Up next, we have New Hampshire. I have this one as a lean Republican. She is running a pretty strong campaign. I know that she was initially an anti-Trumper, but she appears to have um, regained her footing with the party while still retaining that moderate image that a lot of these like center left voters in New England tend to like a lot, like people like Paul LePage in Maine, Charlie Baker in Massachusetts, Bob Stefanowski almost became governor in Connecticut, so on. And I think that Ayotte is going to continue that tradition of these moderate center to center right Republicans, although you could argue that um, Phil Scott's a left wing politician. New Hampshire is definitely going to, I think it's going to stay in the Republican column. The gubernatorial seat, for some reason, is a lot more Republican than the Senate seats, the House races, or the presidential level. And as a result, I think that Ayotte's going to win this race by about 3 or 4. She's popular, well liked, and the only reason she even lost in 2016 was because she ran against the only candidate who had any shot of winning, and that would be um, Maggie Hassan. And finally, we have North Carolina. I actually have this one as lean. I think it's going to be just under 5%. And the reason why is that Robinson is starting to make. Actually, no, not lean, likely. It's likely. I don't think Robinson's going to make the comeback. The problem is, so the hurricane did throw a wrench in the works for the North Carolina Democrats. The only problem is that it's not going to be enough. The Roy Cooper's handling of the hurricane has been pretty awful, and he's been praising Kamala Harris and all that stuff instead of actually, doing his job and serving his constituents. That said, that's not going to be anywhere near enough to bring Robinson over the edge. And it sucks because, a lot of people know this about me. I'm a huge Mark Robinson fan, but he just dropped the ball. And all those scandals, he's just not going to be able to win, unfortunately. The problem is that even though Robinson's going to get a good amount of the vote out west over here, and he might even pick up some black voters on the east coast of the state, the not the usually Republican suburbs are probably going to vote, maybe not entirely for Stein, but shift quite a bit in Stein's direction. As a result, I think Stein's going to win the state by about 6 or 7 points. And yeah, this is my current gubernatorial map. Let's see. The silver lining is that Ayotte could potentially be like the next Ron DeSantis. And the reason why I say this is if the Republicans hold on to the state legislature of New Hampshire and Ayotte's is a lot more ambitious than someone like Sununu, who spent his time, being a bit too bipartisan, we could see New Hampshire become more of a toss up state that it maybe was a good while ago. Now, as a result, that's probably the silver lining, of course. We're probably going to have 8 more years of Democrat governance in North Carolina, but if the North Carolina GOP at least keeps up its current pace, we should still hold on to our supermajorities in the legislature. As for the rest of these places, Washington's been a huge disappointment. I wish that the RGA actually gave a damn about Reichert because Reichert's such a good candidate. And it sucks that the GOP does this because we have so many great candidates in states that they just can't win, like Lee Zeldin in 2022 or Tina Kotek in Oregon and now Dave Reichert in Washington. But that said, yeah, this is going to be my current map. Utah is just barely in the likely column. I think it's going to be safe, probably, if things continue. But right now, just for the sake of looking at the polls, looking at the momentum against Cox, I think Utah's going to be likely again. All these other states, yeah, they're foregone conclusions. And with that said, I have been Jimmy Cobson signing off.